I've got kids, I got professors teaching my kids entrepreneurship that believe in socialism. It doesn't work out so well. It never has. So seeing this kid with his vision was incredible. And the solution that he wanted to solve was exactly the solution I knew had to be solved. So there was no choice but to get behind it.
All right, same question to Charlie.
Yes.
So similar. What made you seek out Gary for support, and how did things change for you and turning point after that?
Yeah, mostly desperation. Just because no one else would really talk to me. No, it's not. That's actually totally true. That's why it's funny. I mean, we had like a small group of people: Tom Sadeka, Bill Montgomery, Mike Miller, Gary Rabine. Those are the 4 Chicagoans that can say they were there at the beginning. That I give them that. And all 4 great people. May Bill rest in peace. Because he was your biggest advocate for you to become governor. I'll tell you what. He was #1. But yeah, honestly, it was kind of, you guys know this from starting business, just starting something from nothing. You'll take every meeting you can, you'll cold call, till you smile and dial, you just kind of call till your ears bleed type thing. And Mike Miller invited me to this event up in Bull Valley, and I was like, oh yeah, New Gingrich is so awesome. And I just got there, we had no money in our bank account. We didn't have a website, like we had nothing, right? It was just kind of this idea. It was a total seed funding vision pitch, right? It was the ultimate kind of, I guess you could call it elevator pitch. It's like the country club pitch. Doesn't sound as good, so we're not going to use that. But yeah, it was the country club pitch, right? And yes, Joe Patak, you were there near the beginning too. You got it. God bless you. You're great.
Ask your question, Charlie.
Not yet. We got patience. All right. Yeah. It's a virtue. So yeah, it's so with Gary, and this is what was so amazing. That you guys know this when starting something, you get used to just being told no. And I was like, all right, this guy's gonna totally tell me no. He's too rich, too successful. Just kind of get ready for it. Just like, oh yeah, call me later and like whatever. He was like, let's sit down right now. I'm like, really? Wow, okay. I was like, and then I just kind of vision cast. And we talked about it till like the wee hours of the morning. I'll never forget it. And I remember like, doesn't Gary have something better to do? But for Gary, every person has value. For Gary, it's not a matter of transaction, right? Is this 19-year-old going to be able to get me some sort of contract for my paving company? It's like, no, I like this guy. He's got energy. He's got spirit. And I think, I don't want to speak for Gary, my energy reminded me a little bit of the scrappiness you had when you started your business, right? Never forgetting where he came from. Right? And I don't want to say this. Gary won't say this about himself. Gary right now could be, fishing 200 days out of the year and have a home in, Naples and one in Scottsdale and being like, see you, Illinois. He doesn't have to be doing this at all. His business is successful enough. He's doing it because he loves this state and he knows that he wants to give back to the very community that has given so much to him. Right? And I think that's so admirable. And it kind of goes to reinforce this idea that you don't forget where you came from.
Well, I'll say one thing. So knocking on doors is my success came from having the guts to knock on doors. To seal coat driveways, paved driveways all around Northern Illinois. And I eventually I knew the data that if I knocked on 100 doors, well, initially, if I knocked on 100 doors, I did a couple seal coating jobs and maybe a paving job. I wasn't a very good salesman back there. I had terrible equipment, my quality was really bad, okay? But that's how I started. Eventually I got a little better. And 5 years later, I knocked on 20 doors, I did one paving job at least, and 4 or 5 seal coat jobs. So I got to be better and better. Well, what I saw in this kid was exactly the same thing. I gave him names and friends of mine to call and talk to. He had no problem knocking on every door I told him to knock on, and some of you in this room are some of those people. And all I asked my friends to do, I said, listen to this kid, smartest young man I've ever seen in my life when it comes to world governance and understanding how the world works when it comes to these communism, socialism, freedom, the Constitution, nobody better. So if you like him like I do, you got to give him some money. I don't care if it's $1,000 or $50,000, give him something. And many of them pulled it up. So when he knocked on doors one after another, as I okay, Gary, I'm done with those. Got some more names for me? Yeah, Charlie. Well, let me get my roller this, right? But again, he had that all along, the ability to knock on doors with no fear. And he's still doing it today, every day, right?
Every day, smile and dial.
And what I love about that, how the world works, right? 9 years ago, you were encouraging your friends to support and endorse Charlie, and here he is. It's come back around, and he's doing the same here for you tonight. So I love that part of your story.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to some Illinois questions. I know Charlie has a flight to catch later. So, Charlie, moving on to Illinois. Almost everyone here is a resident of Illinois. Many already support Gary in his bid for governor. And what we all want to know is, can Illinois be won by a Republican candidate, and how?
Yes, I mean, I was involved in a separate campaign in 2014, I'm not gonna say any names, but yeah, I mean, I know what it takes. I know that also the #1 issue outside of inflation and supply chain, which is a huge issue, and that does not help the current governor at all. The #1 issue that I encourage all of you to get involved in is school boards, and that is a massive fault line in the current regime, big time, in the Pritzker regime, and I would encourage everyone to get involved in 214 school board issues, 211 school board issues, especially I know some people here took back the 220 school board in Barrington, which was really promising and was terrific. But yes, I mean, it's so obvious. New Jersey is more of a Democrat state than Illinois. Let me say that again. New Jersey is more of a Democrat state than Illinois, and the New Jersey State Senate president lost to a truck driver who spent $153 on his campaign.
Yeah.
Which is a suspiciously high amount of money to spend on Dunkin' Donuts. He unseats the New Jersey State Senate president with $153, and they interview him the night of the election. He says, "I have no idea what's going on. Like, he didn't have a party. They're like, who's your contact? He had no staff, right? There's nothing. He just like went to bed, and they woke him up. They're like, you're winning. What? You mean that thing I did? He acted as if it was like getting a gym membership or something. Like, it's kind of like, I just did that. I forgot about that. Like, I didn't know I was a member of Life Fitness. I guess I'm a state senator now. And it's like the guy's the Senate president of New Jersey. Like Tony Soprano himself. You look at him, he looks like, you know, you don't want to mess up. You mess him up and you got a dead horse in your head, you know, your head in your bed or something. Like, really, you're across the line. But the point is, of course, it could be one. Chitterelli, who was the challenger to Murphy, who's very similar to Pritzker, with no money, not running a great campaign, lost by 10,000 votes in New Jersey a couple weeks ago. I mean, if that doesn't send the message that Illinois is in play, I don't know what will. Virginia, Youngkin won by 75,000 to 80,000 votes in a state that was a comfortably Democrat state and flipped counties that were otherwise very, very comfortably Democrat. Virginia, the House of Delegates are Republican for the first time in 10 years, 51-49 majority, so there's a wave happening. But yeah, look, where is the state going to be won or lost? It's going to be one, I mean, and Gary obviously can expand on this, but from my own opinion of working in the state, I mean, I got my political teeth, you guys will laugh, you know, with Mark Kirk's campaign and with Bob Dole's campaign. I know this state politically probably better than any other state that I know. I don't know better than anyone else in this room. I mean, you guys obviously know really well, but I know what it takes to win, and I know that they, right now in play, is their stronghold. And if you get soccer moms and everyday people upset in DuPage and in Will and in Lake and in Collier counties, the state flips. It's that simple. And it flips quickly. You cannot run up the score that much in downtown Chicago and downtown Cook if the collars turn against you. You win the collars and you run up in the rurals and you do better in downtown Chicago, Gary can become governor.
Pretty funny story here, okay? Must have been about 10 months ago, not quite a year ago. I'm in an RGA meeting in Aspen, RGA, Republican Governors Association. I got involved about 5 years ago. A friend of mine wanted me to get involved so that I could, for business reasons, understand where I want to go and do business, right? So this is when by this time, of course, I decided I'm running. This was like a month before. And I'm sitting next to Citarelli and Youngkin, okay, at a dinner. And they're talking about their plans in the states they could flip. They didn't mention Virginia, New Jersey, or Illinois. The three of us are thinking, what are we, chocolate? And it's funny because, you know, I watched Citarelli almost win New Jersey. He probably did if it was legitimate.
I mean, it's New Jersey, of course.
Right? Youngkin wins like a big surprise, but again, we're in play like never before. When I'm all over the city of Chicago, we're talking to police. And okay, I've been invited to events that politicians aren't invited to because they wanted me to show off. So fundraisers, their own fundraisers and stuff. And it goes table to table on 2 different events now. And there's a few hundred at each event. Table by table, I ask, okay, I'm only in a couple minutes. How many here voted Democrat last time? For Pritzker, right? 50-60% of them did. Police, okay? So I said, okay, you guys learn now. How many vote for Pritzker next time? 0. Maybe 1 out of 100. Eric those police, their families, their neighbors, the people that care about them, which are many, okay? They're not gonna get any votes, I'm confident of this. Now we're getting police that are being trained for judges and poll watchers now. We got an event coming up.
Scott's here somewhere. Yeah.
Where's Scott? So Scott, back, stay up, Scott.
Doing a great job.
Scott's helping to finance another event where we're training police. 200 of them, right, Scott? To poll watch and be voted and be judges. How valuable is that? They would have done that 3 years ago. Okay? And I believe we also have a lot of friends whose suburban wives may not have voted for me, even though they're friends, because the first thing they cared about was choice. All right, I'm a pro-lifer. I'm never gonna be ashamed of that. All right. We got a lot of work to do on the evil front that we have in Illinois, in my opinion, there, right? But anyway, these women would never vote for me. Okay, they might have voted for me. They weren't going to inspire their friends to vote for me because they're pro-choice. Now, not even part of the conversation. They care about safety.
Yes.
Not getting that. They care about education, not indoctrination, like a lot of our moms here do, right?
Amen.
And they care about taxes, actually. Almost all cases above what was their first and most important thing, pro-choice before. So I believe they're coming our way. We have to work on it. We need everyone in this room to reach out to 100 friends that they know are on the fence, don't vote, or will come our way too, okay?
So we have to start a Moms for Rabine coalition. I'm telling you.
Mom's working on
We'll get
that.
that going tomorrow, yeah. So just to flush out that question, just to round that out, because you touched on it. So you're both pretty conservative guys, obviously. So how does it?
Are we pretty? Did you say pretty? I was pretty. I don't know.
You're really conservative guys. So how is it conservative when both are left of center voters and are independents? And then to add to that, all of us here in Illinois know that Chicago, the suburbs, there's a divide between here and downstate. So with those kinds of conservative values, how do we tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a contrarian view where I think you do not betray your base to try to win the middle. Instead, I think you find issues that the base cares about that are true and build coalitions, and then you can win in places you never thought you could win before. So I don't do the thing where I think you try to moderate your position on everything. And obviously, if you're talking to the Highland Park, Women's Association, right? You're not gonna lead with your pro-life speech, right? Now, you don't apologize if they ask you, but it's like the most pro-choice community in America, by the way. Highland Park, Evanston, extremely pro-choice. But you have to know your audience, obviously. Just as if you were talking to a police association, you wouldn't talk about corn subsidies, right? Like that, it's just you have to know your audience. At the same time, I think that despite all the slander and all the propaganda, people know deep down, the polling shows this, that if they want to be kept safe and they want the schools to be challenged, Republicans are the vessel to do that. They know that, and especially the safety issue. I mean, crime is through the roof around here. You guys know that, and it's like the Mike Tyson line, right? Like everyone's a Democrat until your house gets broken into, right? It's like everyone's a tough guy until you get punched in the face, right? That's kind of the old, hey Don Layton, how you doing? Great American right there. But it's kind of that thing, like everyone's a Democrat until all of a sudden, you got carjacking, where we're just told it's just part of living an urban life, right? As they say in Chicago. I don't think so. I think a lot of us remember how the suburbs used to be when I grew up, where you didn't have to install these multi-$1,000 safety systems, right? You weren't worried about your kids walking to school every day, and you didn't all of a sudden open up the patch and you're like, oh yeah, there's been like a rape, an arson, and a murder in the 10-mile radius. You all know what I'm talking about, by the way. Yeah. It's happening in the suburbs, it's happening everywhere. And so I think that people are willing to backbench some of their other kind of issues that Pritzker wants you to talk about. Like, Pritzker wants this thing to be about superfluous issues that are not going to be the most important things, right? And the most important things that we have to focus on are schools and crime, and also the obvious one is corruption in government, right? And what better person to do that than someone that hasn't been there forever, that's going for the right reasons, and is I'll say this again, a moral and ethical person.
So I would also say, when you look at the numbers, right and conscious, okay? I guarantee you that's a majority issue. Democrats and Republicans don't agree that shouldn't be taken away from us, the right of conscience to make our own decisions, right? Health-wise, religious-wise, that's crazy. I believe we can work on that. I think that's something we gotta live on. I also believe that this parental notification thing. What parent does not want their 14, 15-year-old daughter to come to them when they have something as critical in life as a pregnancy, right? I'm telling you right now, that's a 70% issue on our side, in my opinion. They've gone too far, and we're seeing it everywhere. We just have to make sure, as Charlie said, we don't get taken off on the issues they want us to, right? We gotta make sure we stay focused on the issues we know are winners.
And you always are on, and Gary's gonna be great at this, which is if you're in front of a hostile audience, be like, this is my position, and here's it. We're not gonna see eye to eye. Let's focus where we do. Never apologize. Never. What bothered me about past Republicans that ran for office here is that we were game, right? We were told they were pro-life, we were told they were good on immigration or whatever, or I'm never going to comment on them. And then they signed the most horrific pro-abortion bill in the country, right? Just be honest, right? Just tell the truth. And then obviously, in a moment like this, build broad-based coalitions that can win.
All right, I think Charlie's got time for one more. Are you good? Okay.
We got 20 minutes. We're good.
So, I think all of us in the room who support Gary, and we all know why we do, and we understand why you endorsed him, but we want to say thank you, first and foremost, for your support now going forward. And so then can you share, we've touched on some of this, but why you believe that Gary is the candidate to win Illinois?
Yeah, I meet a lot of candidates. It's exhausting, honestly. I get asked for endorsements all the time. I mostly say no. I just don't care about most of these races, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I just have a general rule in life that if you're a friend of mine and you go to bat for me, I'm gonna go to bat for you. You know, someone said, "Oh, Charlie, don't you know the odds? Like there's this whatever, It's like, hold on a second. You think that I wager friendships like I'm Caesar Palace, like Vegas better? Like you think that's what's important to me? And like that's just a good rule for life. Is like loyalty is so big and so important, right? And it's the least I could do, obviously, because he's been so good to me and to our country. And Gary, America's a better place because of Gary Rabine. That's just day one, Gary's gonna act. Like day one, and that before the inaugural ball, before Gary Rabine, goes to go meet all his guests in Springfield.
We were just talking about the strategy. Listen to what we're gonna do. Go ahead, Charlie. My advisor.
Well, I mean, yeah. Just an advisor. So the Chicago Tribune tracker that's in here, which is, Gary's gonna act. He's gonna sign executive orders. He's going to have the mandate to reform the state. He's going to stand with police within his constitutional abilities. He's going to do everything he possibly can. It's not just going to be kind of a passerby thing. And then the other thing is day one, Gary's going to be a positive, optimistic voice for Illinois. I don't know about you, I'm so tired of the dreariness and the negativity and the defeatism, right? Like, let's be excited about something again. Let's build things. Let's think big. That's what Illinois used to do. We used to have the tallest buildings and the best vision. Now everything is always so like safetyism and looking around, you know what I mean? And it's just like there's always something evil lurking around there. And it's like, you know what? No. It's like we're going to understand there's threats in life. We understand there's a cost for liberty. But day one, Gary is going to be that positive ambassador. Saying, Charlie, what's Gary Rabine going to look at as governor? Like Ron DeSantis with a paving back.
We're rolling over all these crooks.
That's right.
Okay, so with Gary being the guy for Illinois, what do you think the top 3 issues facing Illinois that we are facing, and how he tackles those?
Yeah, I think corruption in government is massive. I think that going after AppScammy and going after the public sector teacher unions, and I think that there is a window because the Madigan regime is over. There's a window to really exploit. I really do. I think that deep down there have been Democrats in Springfield that know things are so structurally wrong. They know our pension system needs to be fixed here. They know property taxes need to go down. Madigan was just not allowing that to happen for a whole variety of reasons. I think corruption in government is number 1, and actually fulfilling that mandate. I think number 2 is crime, and number 3 is schools. And I think that, by the way, property taxes plays right into schools and the quality of education, right? It's right into that. But then you also need an energetic executive, right? In the Federalist Papers, it talks about that. It talks about that if you're going to have an executive that just kind of mopes around and apologizes all the time, that's not what we need. Gary Rabine is one of the highest energy people I've ever met in my life. Right? I know, seriously, the opposite of Jet, right? Like, just he's high energy Gary, right? And if you know Gary, you know what I'm talking about. Little sleep, total enthusiasm. He'll be there when you need him. We need a governor like that. I mean, this current governor, was born on third and thought he hit a triple, right? I can't imagine he's able to stay awake in meetings, right? Like, I mean, I'll stop with that. You guys listen to my radio show, my principal commentary. I won't go further. I won't. But Gary will literally run circles around because J.D. Prince can't run. So. I know it can be cruel. I don't care. Like, I'm past that. Like, destroying my home that I grew up in. Like, I'm sorry. Gloves are off, as I say. So I keep going. But, and I think Gary's the man for the job because JB knows Gary and he knows Gary to outwork him. And I think that people say, oh, what about the resources? I don't think the resources will be a problem. I don't. I think there'll be a lot of money that we want to spend and take the city.
So that's a question I get from almost everyone, is given JB's money, that, how do we combat that? What does that look like? Is it an issue?
Yeah, of course it's an issue when anyone's, willing to spend $250 million on money he didn't earn, right? So it's just kind of, oh, it's here, it's nice, It's kind of like my father's heirloom, right? Like it's like a jacket I could just give away, whatever, right? He didn't earn it, he didn't have to slave for it, he didn't have to sign loans for it, he didn't have to flight checks for it, right? He was born right into it, like the least self-made person I've ever met in my life. And the thing that bothers me is that the system that gave him all this money wants to destroy. Isn't that so sick, right? That gives him the ability to just be worthless, right? He wants to do that. But yeah, so there's whispers that Ken Griffin's going to match it dollar for dollar. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's some public reports that show he's going to go big. And if that's the case, then it neutralizes that, right? And let's say that there's someone like, Ken or whomever that comes in and does 1/4 of that. That's a big deal. I mean, just 1/4 of JD's money to get a message out and hammer him could be really interesting. But honestly, Illinois is a strange state. You spend unlimited money. It's unrestricted. Not every state has that. So I think that you're going to have. I also think that Gary's going to win over the business community big time. I think the business community, especially in general, I think that stores on Mag Mile don't want to see their products stolen every 6 weeks without right of recourse or grievance, right? I don't think they want to see that. I think that there's going to be the kind of Chamber of Commerce group will come in with millions of dollars to neutralize that. But JB can spend, look, this is JB's the way he's going to run the campaign. He's going to try to characterize Gary as being the boogeyman, the same way they failed to do this in Virginia with Youngkin, right? The same way they tried to do this in Virginia. Like, he's Trump, blah, 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 all this. It's like, people aren't buying that. They're like, yeah, okay, yeah, fine. I don't like Trump. Gary's somebody else. By the way, my car got broken into. My kid's wearing a mask, right? Like, my neighbor just lost his job as a police officer. He wanted to take an experimental vaccine. Like, excuse me, I just don't care about that, right? Like, I care about the guy that's actually going to fix the Illinois way of life. I think that's working regardless of the political kind of landscape that's out there. And New Jersey and Virginia are telltale signs that, by the way, Seattle just elected a Republican as their city attorney, and she won by 16. Seattle, okay? Seattle. There's something happening that's very powerful in this country.
You have time for one more?
We have 2 seconds.
Okay, you're gonna stay till 7? All right, perfect. So we mentioned crime a lot, and to your point, it's forefront in everyone's mind. So should the governor of Illinois get involved in solving the Chicago crime problem? What does that look like, especially around how to affect change when you have a mayor that you don't particularly align with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak for Gary. Gary can agree or disagree with this, truly. I don't want to get him in trouble with this, but it's long past time for the governor to use the national
Yes,
guard.
sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Do we have a National Guardsman here? Do we have a National Guardsman here, I think? Oh, we had somebody. It was this morning.
I was.
Where are you at? Oh, there you go.
Hey, and I will say, Art Allenson, you were the first person to have me speak at your tea party, and you deserve thanks for that. Seriously.
I was Illinois Naval Militia, which is the National Guard component of the Navy. I don't know if it existed.
Thanks for that, buddy. So National Guard, it should be used and could be used. It's not pretty, right? Nobody's gonna like it for a while, but it's gonna be a heck of a lot better than the deaths and the carjackings and the shootings we have today. And all experts I talk to that understand policing, best I know in the country, talked to Charlie about a couple of these earlier, they're saying this is an easy fix, it's common sense. It's not that, today with using old school methods with technology today, there's just no excuse for what's going on in Chicago. And it can be fixed fast. And we're gonna fix it fast.
Yay.
Okay, so as you know, Gary, along with Job Creators Network, which is a part of, filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration and the Department of Labor. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think that kind of action is important?
Yeah, yes, for those of you that follow my work, I have some strong opinions about this stuff. It's so funny. I have been screamed at by these highly smart women for years about my body, my choice. And all of a sudden you have to be jabbed against your will and your whole career has to be eliminated. Because you don't want to take an experimental vaccine from a virus you're already naturally inoculated. My body, my choice, unless it's the vaccine. And that's kind of a self-sovereignty issue. Again, Gary, I'll let you go. I'll follow your lead here. I'm here to help you. I don't want to distract if there's a tracker or reporter here. You guys know my stance on this. I believe that we need to have a real conversation around treatments, azithromycin, ivermectin, monoclonal antibodies, hydroxychloroquine, and aspirin. I think that it's time around the mention it, to talk about it. It's been one of the great injustices of my life. Truly, the fact that you're not even allowed to talk about it, that it gets called a horse dewormer, even though it's a human drug that won a Nobel Prize, that Jimmy Carter himself brought to Africa to cure millions of people of river blindness. I have to be lectured by people that know nothing, that ivermectin is a horse dewormer. And so, yeah, look, I'll leave it at that. No one should be fired at all from their job. Yeah, I'll leave it at that, Gary. I just don't want to get in trouble.
What he said. We understand our own bodies, we understand our own faith and religion, right? We can make these decisions for ourselves. This is what America's about. It's freedom. Freedom!
Okay, we have several Turning Point members here tonight. One question for you about how would you describe where Turning Point is today from where it was 9 years ago, and what's your vision for it in the future?
Yeah, and Gary deserves so much credit, and thanks for that. We have Austin here tonight. Austin, raise your hand. Austin's one of our great team members at Turning Point USA. Down we have our wonderful team.
Yeah, Turning Point members, stand up.
Stand up. Born out of Chicago and now all across the country on thousands of high school and college campuses across the country, we are making the defense for America. It's a pro-American movement, a constitution of freedom, of liberty, and we are going places that, honestly, the message of pro-American education conservatism doesn't always go, which is on high school and college campuses. And so, many of you guys are looking to escape the Chicago cold. We have a great event December 18, 19, 2021, America Fest in Phoenix, Arizona. We got every speaker under the sun coming, from Tucker Carlson to Candace Owens. You guys got to come to Phoenix. They have non-stop flights from Chicago to Phoenix. The flights going from Chicago to Phoenix are always full, but they're always so wide open coming back to Phoenix to Chicago. But yes, so what we are doing is we are trying to make our generation love America again. We want our generation to love this country. It's a beautiful gift that we live in this nation. Unfortunately, it's a highly contentious thing to even say now, which is, are you even allowed to be thankful to be an American anymore? We need to make that a consensus type issue. So if you guys want to learn more, you guys can talk to Austin afterwards. And Austin also helps raise money for us. So if anyone wants to contribute any donations to Turning Point USA, Austin's the guy to talk to. And that's how great of a guy Gary is. Gary wants his events to not just be only about one thing. He said, Charlie, bring Austin, bring your team. He's trying to build a movement, not an empire. It's a really special thing. It really is.
The visionary, though, 10 years from now, Charlie, you're 9 years in, 10 years in, okay, 10 years from now, where do you see it?
10 years from now, we want Turning Point USA to look back and say, hey, remember that moment where we used to have those whack jobs, used to speak for our generation like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Elon Omar? Now we have a new generation of prudent, wise, people that love the Lord, that love the country, that represent your values so well. And we want to move the Overton window. We want to move the dial. 10 years from now, The same way they were able to change public opinions on gay marriage, we want to change public opinions in our country. That if you dare say a negative thing about our country, doesn't fly well in polite society. That's what we want to get. It's like, hold on a second, enough. Like, you could have different disagreements on tax policy. Like, enough bashing the founding fathers. Like, enough with bashing Abraham Lincoln. Like, that dog doesn't want a reference. And that's what the Impact One Turning Point USA to be. That's a huge hill to climb. We're up against multi-trillion-dollar corporations and internationalist, globalist type organizations. But the truth has a way of defending itself once you say it free. And so our vision is one where we want, and again, we're an educational organization. We are not political. We're 501c3. We have a political arm and all that. But education, honestly, culture is more important than even politics today. I think you'll all agree with that. It's like, where do you get all these little Democrats from? They come from people that are learning all these awful ideas, or from places like Hersey High School. I saw this incredible slide, Hersey High School, I have on my phone, where they're saying conservatives are people that want to resort to violence, and they're like, this is Hersey High School, right? Which again, I've never really been a big fan of Hersey going to Wheeling, but that's a whole different conversation. But you know, Wheeling unfortunately has just become just as bad. So
I'll just say one thing. The incredible thing that Charlie won't talk about, and he's so focused, but many little organizations and great young politicians that spun out at Turning Point. A young man asked me if I could be part of his organization called Run Gen Z. Almost everybody in this that ran as 18 to 25-year-olds for state senates, house seats, county boards, school boards, almost all of them come from Turning Point USA. So think about this: Run Gen Z, Generation Zers, conservatives, running in places you would have never seen before. We're bringing them to Illinois. We had some training here a month ago now. And again, almost all these kids are inspired. We've been inspired by Turning Point USA. So that's not just Turning Point USA, right? It's where these kids go from there to lead organizations and businesses and everything else with the same mindset for the rest of their lives, right?
So three things, and I gotta go catch a flight to go back to Arizona. We have a whole mess of things we're doing there. You guys all want Arizona to be safe too. Trust me, the country can't be safe without Arizona being safe. That's a whole different thing. Three things. Number one, help Gary any way you can, guys. Financially, prayer, volunteers, support. This campaign's gonna heat up big time in the new year. It's gonna heat up. I'm gonna be back towards the end to help Gary with the sprint. We're doing mostly fundraising type events now. We're gonna do some big grassroots events. We want thousands of people to come out and support Gary all across the state. We need door knockers, we need individual people. And also with that, go show up to 211 and 214 school board meetings. You gotta show up to 211 and 214 school board meetings. By the way, I am going to come back at some point and speak at a 214 school board meeting. They got to answer for what they've done. I'm graduate of 214, and I got a lot of problems with those people. Okay. Number two, which is really important. Just for the country, you guys got to reject cynicism. You have to reject self-pity. I know a lot of people here are probably saying, you know, Charlie, I've done everything I've been told to do. I watched Tucker Carlson. I bought the pillow. I've done everything I'm supposed to do, right? And by the way, promo code Kirk at mypillow.com. And the Visa Dream Sheets are unbelievable, and the slippers, they really are unbelievable. Promo code Kirk, write it down. We need more than a bunch of pillow buying, reverse mortgage people to like save the republic, okay? We need you to show up. We need you to speak out. We need you to run for local office. So maybe you're like, man, I don't know what to do. How do I help Gary? Honestly, he needs people that have endorsed him to run for local office, and then you knock on doors and you also hand out his literature. So you're trying to win something, and then helps Gary as well. There needs to be an army of local people that run for office locally, and do it as a slave to bring them to the top, right? And they all endorse and they all reinforce themselves. Finally, thank you guys for supporting AM 560 The Answer. When you guys listen to the radio program, you guys support us, it means a lot. Our show's going very well. We're on for 2 hours a day. Thank you for subscribing to our podcast too. You guys listen to the podcast about Illinois a lot. You guys can subscribe by getting on your phone, Charlie Kirk Show. Subscribe is in the upper right-hand corner. It's a plus sign. It really means a lot when you do that.
Okay, get your butt out of here. You're going to be late. I'll answer a few extra questions at the end. And then
I'll say one last thing. I love Illinois. I will be back. And God bless you. Thank you.
One more question, anybody here?
Question?
What's your name, young man?
My name is Deshaun.
Huh?
Deshaun.
Sean, Deshaun.
I'm the state director for Lexington, Illinois.
Yes.
So I've noticed for me as a black man, especially being from like the south suburbs of Illinois, that it's quite barren, and we having a real issue with. Charlie spoke on it, with home ownership, with people leaving to other states, right? And I feel like more of the other states in the Midwest, that Illinois has an imperfect balance of either completely urban or like completely rural. It doesn't really have strong suburbs, right? Especially the south suburbs. And I see places like Matson, I see places like Harvey, I see places like Fort Heights, I see places, even places like Tinley Park, right? That have such potential but aren't being properly invested in. So like, do you have any plans to like reinvest in the infrastructure or the schools or the businesses of the suburbs?
So Deshaun, two things are gonna happen when I win, okay, two things. Number one,
Good question.
Thank you for the question. He's one about economy, he's one home ownership, right? How do we get this stuff back? Number one, we're losing 50,000 jobs a year. Reducing our regulatory environment, as kind of Trump did for our country, and other governors have done for the states. We look at the regulatory environment, we understand what's killing jobs and businesses, we start reducing the stupidness, right? That's number one. And I understand this inside out. With 11 companies here in Illinois, I can tell you, we understand the pain of the bad regulatory environment that's been built up for the last 20 years to smother small business. When that changes, jobs will flow in Illinois, and our companies that are here today will be able to grow, right? Most companies want to grow 4, 5, 10% a year. All we need is 2% growth on average for our companies that are here to grow 100,000 jobs a year. Right? Because we had about 5 million jobs here, and it's dwindling. We had 5.5 not long ago. Okay? So 100,000 jobs here, we're losing 50. We can flip that to gaining 50,000 jobs a year. That's a big deal. That changes things fast. Next is, how do you afford a home in the south suburbs where the property tax are 10%? 10% I find out in some of these neighborhoods. We're talking south suburbs where the homes were worth $200,000 10 years ago. Now we're at $100,000 with taxes of $10,000 and $12,000. That's robbery. That's tax theft. That's got to change. We're going to be a state that competes with Indiana again. Okay? Indiana went up from over 2% in 2009 to like 2.2% of the property tax of the value. So on a $100,000 home, it'd be $2,200, right? Down to 1% or $1,000. They froze all their taxes at 1%. We're going there. That's my goal. That's my goal. And I've already hired the best economist in the country's history that's done that. The guy who was Mitch Daniels' guy is my guy. I went to Nashville and I recruited him, right? He was also Jeb Bush's guy. He was also Scott Walker's guy. Right today, he's DeSantis' economic advisor. And he's Polis's economic advisor, a Democratic governor, and he's mine, right? We're not going small, we're playing big. Joe, you have a question? Thank you. Joe?
Excuse me. One of the biggest things that I think our nation has needed for years, because it's a major problem in our nation, is the lack of real leaders. I met Gary Rabine 4 years ago. When I heard him speak, I said to myself, this man is a leader. Leaders are like eagles, they don't congregate. You got to find them one at a time. Charlie Kirk tonight didn't mention it, but I was at the event where he introduced this one gal to be on his team. Her name was Candace Owens. Gary's got a legacy, a vision of bringing up the youth, the future of our nation. People have asked his opponents, well, what's he done? I'll tell you what he's done. He's looked after the future of our nation. We need leaders like Gary, not idiots like Pritzker.
You had mentioned that you want to be able to allow criminals to be arrested, help the police departments that will so desperately need it. What are plans in the future about actually being able to prosecute these criminals? You have people like Kim Fox that are politically incentivized to not.
So an executive order is to fire, okay, this is crazy, not crazy, but it can be done. I've talked to other governors, it can be done. Fire all state's attorneys that George Soros backed. How is it acceptable when the worst state's attorneys are entertained? We got a bunch of them, by the way. It's more than just her. We're backed by Soros, the communists. It's craziness. It's unbelievable that we allow that to happen. So but here's something else though. I believe that there's amazing things we can do in our jails. I've got to be very good friends with the sheriff of DuPage County. So if anybody doesn't know about this guy, I believe in innovation. I bring innovation to dirty jobs, and that's how I become kind of successful, right? I bring innovation to dirty jobs that other people don't. Hendricks, right, with nothing in for himself but doing a good job, has been very innovative. If he took his innovative mind to the private sector, he'd be a millionaire, a multi-millionaire today. So he's got a program where he's got carpentry classes. He's got cleaning classes. He's teaching people to be really good at cleaning. He's got welding classes. He's got his jail. The prisoners built 2 tattoo parlors, and the confidence of these people in the jail, okay, hardened criminals in some cases are waiting for their sentences. The confidence in them to go back to the real world was so much that they're getting their tattoos taken off and covered up, their gang tattoos, okay? What does that mean? It means they're dead if they go back to their communities, right? They're dead. So this sheriff has given these guys so much confidence that they got a real job in the real world. And I'm going to be helping with that a lot. I'm very blessed to have many friends around me that are entrepreneurial. I'm confident a couple of these guys I'm looking at right here would be part of this program. All right, a lot of my friends would be part of a program where we can mentor these people that have, they've done some crime, but they've probably not murdered anybody, right? They probably not done any, bank robberies. But the bottom line is they've got a bad record, but they've got nowhere else to go back to their community. Okay, but the citizen rate in his jail before he was there was about 75%, and that was not bad compared to Cook County. It's 85%. Today it's between 15 and 20%. That's amazing, right? So, I'm an entrepreneur with a mind of duplication. Many of my friends that I know, and I'm looking at some of this room right now, okay, they have minds to duplicate. We need to duplicate that over and over and over again in our state, in every county in our state. So Hendricks and Navy, so my goal is to find those people everywhere in our state, and all over, and across the country, to cure the problems. But that's a big problem. So hey, thank you everybody for being here. I really appreciate it.
And how willing he is to fight for us. If I could say anything here, what we've done in our local community in terms of taking action, our local Republican commitment is here. He backed us as parents. Seek out those people to help. Gary will help. And then go to Gary's website. Sign up to volunteer. All of us working together really can.
RabineForGovernor.com.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Streamed it.
Nice meeting you.
Meeting you as well. And please do.
We're gonna go grab food somewhere. I don't know.
You look good, bro.
Thank you.
You look better than you.
Yeah, it was
For a while.
Josh is. Where should we go? You live like right by here, don't you?
Yeah, like 5 minutes.
So where can we
Well, there's all this stuff by Woodfield, but it's
pick something else? But like on, so it's like Brad and his mother might go, Stacy, Jackie, me, you guys.
Julie, where you want to go eat?
Somewhere nearby. I know there's a ton of places, but
All right, yeah, let's go there.
What about Miller's instead? I hate Stone.
she hates Stonewall.
You know why? Because we go there every Sunday. But we haven't gone. I know, but it's the same.